An update to a story we brought you a few weeks ago. Later right here, Pamela Moses, she was locked up for trying to vote. They dropped the charges, overturned this insane malicious prosecution. Guess what? She is now suing for malicious prosecution. Let's put a picture up full mass here. I will remind you of the background. This happened in Memphis, Tennessee. She's an activist who had a 6-year prison sentence for voter fraud. It was overturned. We reported on this when it happened. After our reporting, many advocated for her. She got it overturned. Great, right? Good stuff. Now she's suing the state and the local county officials for damages that she claims came from the wrongful prosecution and incarceration. In January, 44-year-old Pamela Moses was sentenced to 6 damn years in prison after prosecutors said she tried to register to vote, knowing that she was ineligible because of a prior felony conviction. But she was told by the government that she could actually register to vote. Sounded like a setup from day one. She was convicted even though 2 government officials, including her probation officer, who conceded, admitted, proclaimed on the record, he made an error, signed off on a state form that affirmed her eligibility. Now, before I get into the update, I need to really bring home the disaster that took place and how this was a malicious prosecution, not a mistake, not negligence, but intentional and malicious. The statute in Tennessee that makes it illegal for a person who is convicted of a crime that takes them away from their right to vote, which is insane, but that's a different story. The statute says that it must be willful and intentional. In other words, the person has to form mens rea. They have to know that what they are doing is in fact a criminal violation. They had evidence on the record that proved she was acting in good faith because her own probation officer signed a document and said she was eligible to do this. They decided to disregard that evidence, prosecute her anyway, and they tried to give this woman 6 years in prison because she was a thorn in their side. There's more. Moses' conviction was overturned by a judge in February after the Guardian published documents underscoring the probation department's error. Prosecutors did not turn over the document. An internal email from Tennessee's Department of Correction blaming the probation officer for the error to Moses' defense before her trial. Moses spent 82 days in jail before the conviction was overturned. The prosecution caused her mental anguish, emotional distress, stress, anxiety, embarrassment, humiliation, and it was demoralizing. Her lawyers wrote in the complaint filed in federal court last week. Put up the damn DA. Heartless, malicious, and corrupt. This is former Shelby County District Attorney Amy Richey unknowingly withheld information that would have exonerated Ms. Pamela Moses. Now you have crossed the line. You see, if they would have prosecuted the case with all evidence available and presented, this would not be a slam dunk for malicious prosecution. But the fact she decided to hide it, the fact she decided to shield it, is what will nail her to this case. Earlier this year, that same DA said the Department of Correction had not provided the document to her office. In February, a department spokesperson said there was a, and I quote, lack of recognition of the scope of the documents that had been requested. The DA, a Republican, lost her re-election bid last month to the new county DA, let's put him up, Steve Mulroy, a Democrat who brought up Moses' case frequently, talked about it on the campaign trail. It was part of the platform. Tennessee voting laws in regards to people with felonies. Let me read it to you. Tennessee has some of the most restrictive voting laws in the United States when it comes to restoring the rights of people with felonies. About 471,592 people in the state, and more than 21% of its black voting population cannot vote because of a felony, according to an estimate by the Sentencing Project of Criminal Justice nonprofit. And once again, the statute clearly says just doing the action does not mean you committed a crime. You have to do the action with the intent of breaking the law, meaning you have to know what you're doing is illegal. I'm glad this was overturned, and I'm also happy that she filed the proper lawsuit because this is malicious prosecution. All right, David, thoughts?
It's good to hear that the DA lost her reelection bid. I think it needs to go a step further, though. I think she needs to be disbarred because she violated the courtroom rules. She's supposed to be an officer of the court, and she violated that. And the other thing that comes to mind is just this week, I want you to hear two names, Jacob Wohl and Jack Berkman. They are two Republican strategists, operatives, who were just charged for making robocalls, deliberately misleading people about polling locations, engaging in election fraud. If convicted, they face up to a year. Now, I would argue maybe it should be more, but the problem is we need to have equal justice. If in fact you're gonna charge anybody with voting fraud, and that person is gonna get 6 years possibly, and yet you've got these people who are trying to defraud thousands of people, and you're gonna maximize them at maybe a year. That is a system that is unfair, that is clearly racist, and that is clearly not equal justice, and it has to be fixed.
So well said, David, and I've maintained this from day one. All of these public arrest of black people in Florida for registering to vote when they were told they could by the people that registered them. The case in Tennessee and the extreme sentencing of 6 years in prison for just registering to vote. It is meant to scare black people in particular from engaging in this civic responsibility. That's what it's meant to do. It's a psychological dynamic.